Hi there, I'm Alex Dowsett, and you're listening to the MX Endurance podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the sexiest voice in triathlon himself, James Bale. How you going, Jimbo?
I'm not too bad, mate. I keep forgetting that your new name is Chicken Waffle. So that's how I'll be referring to you as from throughout this podcast. Yeah, I'm well, mate.
I don't remember this.
I'm well. It's we've decompressed for a week, haven't we? After getting back from sub, you're in Girona riding your legs off, and I've been in the UK not really training because I'm just in a pit of depression about my ankle that will not recover. How's things your end?
Hot, mate. Girona's hot. It's very, very hot here, and I'm tired because I've done so much goddamn bike riding.
Yeah.
But what, mate? I tell you what a place to train. It is. I think when I was trying to pick my place to train for a few weeks, a lot of people recommended Girona. Now that I'm here, I completely understand why. Every bike ride has been amazing. The drivers are so respectful of cyclists. Like it's such a novelty to just never get beeped or called a wanker or something worse when you're riding your bike.
Yeah, I find that when I'm riding in France, I find the drivers are very, very good, apart from in some of the cities. But yeah, it's a continental European approach to cyclists, mate, that British people and Australians and Americans are not used to.
The biggest challenge I'm having is because I obviously don't know the area, so I've been picking bike routes and putting them onto my Hammerhead bike computer. And fuck me, that thing seems to be a bit temperamental some days, because it's at one point trying to send me, like, I literally did a lap of a square. I was like, where the fuck does this thing want me to go? Because I can't work out where it's trying. And then I just go, fuck it, I'm just going to ride, and eventually it sort of self-corrects. But there's been a few times where I've been riding and I've missed a turn because it's like, the roundabouts here have got like 27 exits. So I've taken the wrong one. And it's like rerouting, and it tells you to turn right, and you turn right. It's just like a 30% gradient climb for like 100 meters. I'm like, oh man,
the technology is not quite there yet, is it, with these things? My Edge does that. It says it will map a route for you, but then you'll get there and you'll find it's included about 500 to 600 meters of like off-road mud track, and you're like, I can't do that. I don't know. Now I don't know where to go.
It's funny because I did a ride a few days ago, and I remember I went through this town that was like really rough cobblestones, and I was like, the whole way I thought, oh, well. And then I had this huge, beautiful sweep and descent for like 2K, and I remember thinking, well, thank Christ I went this way, because going the other way would be absolutely brutal. And like 2 days later, I'm riding, and I'm going, this seems a bit familiar. Like, why do I know where I am right now? Like, I think I've been here before. And I turned, I went, oh no, and I had to ride up this climb all the way to the top, then followed by and I had to get off my bike because the cobbles were too bad, and because it was an ascent, I was so worried that I was going so slow that I'd actually get knocked off by one of the bumps.
And then you end up clopping up a bunch of cobbles in your SPD. It's fantastic.
It's very Euro, mate. Very Euro.
The joys of being a biker. Anyway, let's talk about something other than ourselves, shall we?
I was going to say that there's one day where I swear to God, Jan Frodeno must have thought that I was stalking him, because I went to Lacamina, because it's like around the corner from where I'm staying, and he was there, and I was like, okay. So then I went to the pool, and he was there. I was like, oh God, this is getting a bit awkward. Went back to Lacamina. He was there again. I'm like, I swear to God, I'm not following him. And hours later, I decided to go out on the bike, and the first corner I take, there's Jan Frodeno again. And I'm thinking, this guy must honestly think that I am his biggest stalker, because everywhere he went that day, hey mate, here I am popping up again.
You mean he's figured out that you're his biggest stalker? He's correct in that assessment.
I'm not a fan, mate. Fan, not stalker. There's a fine line, and I don't cross it. But Jimbo, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by four-time world champion Chris McCormack. James, every week I ask you something you like about MX Endurance, but I'm not going to do that this week, because I saw a message that got posted in the group today that I wanted to give a little shout out about. Angela Vinicom put this up, and it's about one of our members, Hans Kuhl. She said, "Hi MX, I just wanted to let you know that one of our valued team members, Hans Kuhls, was involved in a motorcycle accident last night on the ranges here in Cairns while heading home after work. Hans has sustained some serious injuries with several broken bones, including his pelvis. His neck and spine are okay, but it will be a long recovery. I've gotten to know Hans and his wife Mel over the last 2 years, and Hans is a really genuine family guy who is the first to support others. And I'm so grateful it's not worse. Please join me in sending him some speedy healing vibes." So I just wanted to say, Hans, from behalf of everybody, part of MX, our listeners, myself and James, everything, We wish you absolutely the best, and it's terrible to hear that you had that accident, mate. But you're absolutely in our thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Best wishes and speedy recovery, and we'll see you out on the course soon, I'm sure.
Exactly. Again, Hans is a really good guy, really supportive. He's a very active member of our community. So if you find him on Instagram, send him some good wishes. There's also a thread going in the MX group at the moment. So if you're in there, send him your healing vibes, as Angela said. So after that, mate, it's time to get into some news because we got an interview this week. You're sitting down with, obviously I know everything about Alex being the biggest cycling fan in the world, but I know that you sort of you have a bit of a soft spot for cycling. So you're sitting down with Alex after this to
it's a learning experience for me. We'll call it a learning experience for me, shall we?
I'm just trying to up you to my level, mate, because I am a bit sick of always having to carry the podcast whenever we talk about cycling, and I figured that maybe I'll just throw you in the deep end and up your knowledge a little bit.
I'll be fine, I'm sure. I will survive. I'll survive this acid test.
Well, the first thing we're going to talk about this week, because there's a lot of racing that happened over the weekend, none of which I watched, if I'm honest, but we're going to get through it anyway.
Neither did I. Neither did I. That's the problem.
I know. WTCS Leeds happened. Obviously, the return to Leeds. We spoke about it last week, and it sounds like it was an action-packed weekend of racing, mate. We got our summaries from Helen Gorman at Tri 24/7, and we're going to start with the women's race. Cassandra Beaugrand claimed a brilliant victory at WTCS Leeds on Saturday, and she got the better of British stars Georgia Taylor-Brown and Sophie Caldwell. A huge field of 57 women dived into Waterloo Lake in the park, and Beaugrand immediately set the pace along with Olympic champion Flora Duffy. Cassandra avoided all the tussles around the turnbuoys, and she exited the water first, followed closely by Duffy, Taylor Spivey, Vittoria Lopez, and Caldwell. Beaugrand was also first out of T1, but inadvertently overstepped the mountain line in the rush to get up the hill and away from the chasers and incurred a 10-second penalty as a result. She will need to serve that later in the race. The power group of four seemed to have a fantastic opportunity to work together and forge a lead, but Beaugrand fell away, and then surprisingly Duffy dropped back to as Spivey and Caldwell rode away. Caldwell and Spivey left T2 together, and then the British athlete immediately burst into the lead. Maya Kingma was at the head of the chasing pack, 30 seconds down on the leaders and 2 seconds ahead of Taylor Brown. Beaugrand pushed ahead and had enough time in hand to take her stop-go penalty just meters before the finish line and sprint across the line to victory. So the women's race about the results: first place Cassandra Beaugrand 59.03, second place Georgia Taylor Brown 59.12, third place Sophie Caldwell 59.15, fourth place Taylor Spivey 59.22, fifth place Beth Potter 59.22 as well. Now I didn't watch this, but I definitely saw clips and the highlights, and that Cassandra Beaugrand finish, mate, where she had to pull over and literally count the 10 seconds before she could go to the finish was pretty high pressure.
Yeah, man, that 10 seconds that she was in the penalty box, that is probably the only time she's ever experienced time slower than an FTP test. Do you know what I mean? That would have been pretty grim standing there for those 10 seconds, knowing that people are bearing down on you.
Definitely.
But once the time started ticking away and she was getting towards the end of that 10 seconds, you could see that the competitors in the background weren't going to have the momentum or the opportunity / time to catch her, and she sprinted down the carpet for the win. Mate, I'm really happy to see Cassandra Beaugrand take a race like this, and I like the way it was done. She's an incredible runner, but coming first out of the water and first out of T1, ceding some time on the bike, but then backing her run to bring it back. It's good to see.
No, I think we've been quite optimistic this year, or maybe that's not the right word. Excited to see Cassandra sort of unleash that potential from what we've seen in some of those early season little things that she was doing, and this is exactly it. Like, she is such a good athlete when she's on. I think she's right up there as one of the best in the world. I think one of us. I'm not even being sarcastic. I think maybe myself picked her last week for the win, and I'm not surprised because she's just that good, mate. So to see this result, have enough time, because we're talking about a sprint race. So 10 seconds in a sprint race is an eternity. So to have that sort of lead and still win by 9 seconds is some serious impressive racing. So excellent work.
Yeah, what a run!
We got the rankings. We got the rankings now. Now I'm actually surprised by looking at these rankings, but currently in first place you have Flora Duffy, who has 5,294 points. Is that right? Yep.
That's
okay. Second place, Taylor Spivey, 4,813 points. Third place, Laura Lindemann, 4,561 points. Fourth place, Taylor Nibb, 4,457 points. And fifth place, Georgia Taylor Brown, 4,356 points. I thought Georgia's won like 2 races already, so I would have thought she'd have heaps of points. But
well,
there you go.
The WTCS website is particularly rubbish. Now, normally Try 24/7 have the summary of the rankings after the latest race on the bottom of the article.
They gave up too.
No, they didn't. They just had the same. They obviously some sort of typo. They had the same ones from last week. So I went onto the WTCS website, and this is what it says. But the WTCS website is clunky as all fuck. So this may be
take that with a grain of salt. It may or may not be correct.
It's very difficult to navigate that website.
Now the men's race, mate, was a little bit more dramatic by the sounds of it. Again, I'm actually kind of keen to watch the replay of this when I get back home because I've got Triathlon Live set up on my TV at home. But we'll get into it. This summary is from Graham Shaw, also at Try 24/7, and it says the British big guns of Yee and Brownlee came out of the water together just 12 seconds off the pace, with a huge group of about 30 athletes all heading for T1 at the same time. Closer to the front, though, it was the French contingent who aced it through T1, and they were prominent heading out on the bike course. Vincent Louis, looking to reassert his brilliance in WTCS combat after an ultimately disappointing 2021, led early on the bike, and he and his compatriot Leo Berger quickly made up a break to take 15 seconds out of the rest of the field on lap 1. It was disaster, though, for Jonathan Brownlee and Alex Yee, as they were involved in an accident climbing the hill out of T1, which saw both crash out. Also out were Kevin McDowell from the USA and Dylan McCullough from New Zealand. Louis and Berger were first into T2 after a dominant bike leg, but Louis had a disaster in transition which cost him well over 10 seconds as he failed to dismount and crashed into a barrier. He had miscounted the laps and did not know that the bike leg was over. Pretty soon, though, it was Wild emerging from the chasing pack to set out in pursuit of the Frenchman. Berger continued to lead at the first of the 2 run laps concluded, but Wild was cutting into the deficit, which was now down to just 8 seconds. Wild absolutely blasted past Berger early on that second lap with a blistering turn of pace. The Frenchman, perhaps a little wary after the huge bike lead, had no answer. Wild continued to increase his advantage with a dominant performance, and he was 60 to 70 metres clear as they came to the closing stages. It was the most impressive of victories, with Berger claiming an excellent second. So in the men's race, Hayden Wild, his first ever WTCS win, 53.18. Second place, Leo Berger, 53.28. Third place, Las Lurs, 53.38. That was a doozy, so I'm sorry if I got that name wrong. But a few little mentions here, mate. It's good to see Richard Murray back amongst it in 7th place, 53.57. Vincent Louis ended up fading to 10th for 54.10. But yeah, what did you think about this race, mate?
Yeah, well, let's talk about the race and the results in isolation before we talk about the next article, which is a bit more detail into the implications of some of the race. But mate, from my perspective, fantastic to see Hayden Wild take a victory because he's a brilliant athlete and a good mate, and I'm pleased to see him on the top step of the podium. And as I said last week, it was great to see Richard Murray on the start list, and it was fantastic to see him amongst it. He's up there in 7th place, and that's it brings a good feeling to my heart, especially after so close after his surgery and then changing affiliation to the Netherlands. It's good to see him. Good to see him in that top 10. Did you see Vince Louis' little incident out of at the end of the bike leg?
I did.
Completely miscounted the laps, forgot he was meant to dismount, and then crashed his bike into a barrier. If you're going to stop, there's no quicker way of stopping than ploughing into a barrier, I suppose.
No, that was brutal. I saw that, and again, I suppose it's easy. You can tell that they must have really been given it some if you've even lost count of the laps. Like that's how much they would put in chunks of time into the chase pack. Yeah. So I reckon he was just fully committed, mate, and just didn't realize because he went absolutely flying into it. But maybe he recovered pretty quickly, got off, ran back. Did he get a penalty as well? So he's not only he's not only had to deal with the crash, but he's also got a penalty for crossing the mount, the dismount line as well. It's like, come on, guys.
It's a shame because
I don't think he got much of an advantage.
I want to see Vince firing again this year, and over the sprint distance, that's in historically where he fires best. So it would have been really cool to see if that hadn't happened, if he hadn't fucked it coming off the bike and got a penalty, what could have transpired on the run, because he's a powerhouse on the sprint distance, mate, and the super sprint. He always seems to historically dip off a little bit over the Olympic, but he's banging over these distances.
Now, I think we are going to see that. I think those rankings for the women must be a bit off because looking at the men's race, the points are much lower. So in first place currently is Leo Berger with 2,769 points. Second place, Antonia Serrat-Sioni, 2,325 points. Third place, Hayden Wild, 2,254 points. Fourth place, Vasco Valasa, 1,846 points. And fifth place, Lassie Nigard Priester, 1,832 points. I'd suggest that those women's rankings
WTCS, if you're listening, that we read that off a screenshot.
Well, we know they are.
A screenshot of your website that said above it, updated on June 14th, 2022. So, like, come on, up your game.
Exactly. But look, let's move to the next thing. And this is an article, again, still with Graham Shaw from Try 24/7. Hayden Wild admits it is totally my fault for the Brownlee Yee Leeds crash. New Zealand's Hayden Wild displayed wonderful honesty in the aftermath of his first ever WTCS victory, admitting he was to blame for the accident which saw British stars Johnny Brownlee and Alex Yee crash out early in the bike league. It was later revealed that Brownlee has suffered a broken elbow in the crash. He told BBC One, "It's a bittersweet victory, to be honest. As it's my first victory, I'm actually really stoked. But there was part of that collision which was probably my fault. I just really want to apologise to Johnny Brownlee and Alex Yee and my teammate Dylan McCullough, who I actually collided into a little bit. On the uphill, there was a lot of speed going through there, and we just got caught the momentum, and the guys went down behind me." Wild said he'd been really looking forward to locking horns with Brownlee and Yee after having a terrific battle with the latter in Yokohama recently, just not like this. He said, "I wanted to race those boys properly, not like that. I just feel gutted, to be honest. I know Johnny was pretty mad on the side. He gave me some words. That's fair enough. I'd do the same. Just absolutely gutted for those guys. Other than that, really happy how I ran today and how the race went. The swim went well, but just a little bittersweet for me today. Honestly, it's totally my fault. More than happy to own up to that. I just feel real bad for them. As you said, it might be Johnny's last time here." James Bale.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a shame. I haven't seen the crash. I didn't see the race, but
There's no footage. There's no footage of the crash.
Is there
It happened
not?
off camera.
But look, racing incidents happen, and you know, this is the heat of the battle, and things are happening all around you. It's very easy to look back on a replay or a slow motion replay and think someone should have done this or moved that way or done the other. But ultimately, decisions are made in a split second at speed, and it's very good of Hayden to come out and raise his hands up and say, "Look, I made a mistake, and this was the implications of it," as opposed to, you know, trying to say, you know, I didn't do it, my fault, you know, and shift blame. But you know, big up to Hayden for owning that. The implications of it are not great. I mean, obviously with Johnny Brownlee breaking his elbow, Yee got away with it, but we'll see what the implications of that. I hope it doesn't threaten Johnny's Com Games inclusion.
I think it's going to have to, mate, isn't it?
No, I don't know. It depends whether it's a fracture
Broken elbow.
or a break.
Broken elbow is a serious thing. Yeah, it's true.
You know, you never know. These things get reported quickly and then they get changed over time. So we'll see. I mean, I fractured my ankle in the first week of January and I still can't run. So, you know, but I am a mere mortal.
I've seen a lot of discussion around this online, and it's been interesting to watch the reactions to this online, because I think at first, again, people haven't seen what happened. I've seen that a lot of people have been asking for footage and it just doesn't exist. And at first, I saw a few people who were commenting saying, last year, Alistair Brownlee got disqualified for dunking somebody, yet Hayden Wild gets away with this scot-free when he's admitted to causing an accident. And I saw Hayden actually jump on and respond to this, and he's like, whoa. Like, there's a big difference between saying I'm to blame for the accident and it actually being my fault. And what he was, I think there was a quite a technical part of the course, and a big gust of wind caught them as a group of, 30 odd people were sort of trying to squeeze through this small thing. And I think that's probably more what it comes down to. I don't necessarily think it's like Hayden Wild going out there intentionally trying to put anybody into difficulty. It's about athletes trying to do what they can to get to the front of the race, which is what racing is. But I think we need to maybe start to consider, is it about course design? Because it's this fine line between these flat, boring courses that don't really break things up, and then these tougher, challenging courses where maybe some things can go wrong. And I don't know the perfect answer for it, mate, because we want to see these guys pushing the limits a little bit, but we also don't want to see people get hurt like this. So, yeah, I don't know. I think you're right.
I'd forgotten about that until you mentioned it. It was
I
definitely think there's a difference between riding along, being slightly out of position, getting caught by a gust of wind, not dealing with it very well, taking people out, to Hayden and Wild riding along and pushing somebody off their bike, which is essentially the same as the dunking thing.
Exactly. Like I said, you said it too, and I think it's right. It's very mature of Hayden, and I think it shows his development as a professional athlete to own up to it and not come out and try to play the blame game or try to shift. Or he's literally like, no, I played a part in this and I regret it, and I feel bad for those guys, because I think the Hayden Wild Alex Yee is the rivalry this year for me for WTCS. It's those two racing each other is what I want to see. Yeah, it's fantastic if Vince is in there. Yes, it's fantastic if Johnny's in there. But you put those two up against each other at the moment, and I'm happy. So to see it sort of, I really thought we were going to see fire between those two in this Leeds course. And yeah, it is a little bit disappointing that we were deprived of that because of something like a crash. And now to hear that Johnny Brownlee's broken his elbow is obviously concerning. So yeah, that's that.
Bang on, onwards.
Bang on. More racing, mate, because as I said, there was more, and there was some absolute domination in an Ironman Des Moines last weekend. Matt Hansen and Sky Monch made it an American double as they justified favoritism with wins at Ironman North American Championships on Sunday. Jonathan Turner at Tri 24/7 put this article together. It's very Tri 24/7 article week this week.
Yeah, it's very heavy.
Wearing number one for men was Hansen, who came out into the event on the back of a strong second place finish recently at Chattanooga 70.3. And here he finished only 3 minutes clear of runner-up Andre Lopez from Brazil. Monch, fourth recently at the Ironman World Championships in St. George, secured her latest regional championship with a stunning 20-minute win. That is a domination, mate. That is an absolute domination. The men's swim finish was bunched, but it was wonderful to see Tim O'Donnell at the 4 as he continued his return to racing after his heart attack at Challenge Miami in 2021. Hansen started to assert towards the end that he was in control from that point onwards. O'Donnell was his closest challenger for the first half of the run, but dropped back to third as Lopez set a fastest of the day 2:29.29 marathon, just a fraction ahead of Hansen's 2:30.21. Hansen stopped the clock at 7:56.48 to earn his fourth North American Championship title, while Lopez also dipped just under the 8-hour mark. In the women's race, it was all about Monch. She was in the lead group on the swim, took complete control on the bike, and started the run with a lead of over 14 minutes over Jen Annett from Canada. That continued to move out, and she crossed the line at 8:51.44, more than 20 minutes ahead. Kelly Finlow from USA was third, and Britain Susie Cheatham took fourth. So the men's results: Matt Hansen, 7:56.48. Second, Andre Lopez, 7:59.27. Third place, Tim O'Donnell, 8:10.07. Pro women, Sky Monch, 8:51.44. Second, Jen Annett, 9:11.49. Third place, Kelly Phil now, 9:20.07. Mate, those run times.
Yeah, I mean,
2:29.
Yeah, that's blistering, isn't it? That
has to be short, hasn't it? I mean, it doesn't have to, but
it doesn't have to be.
It's pretty fast.
It's pretty damn fast. Yeah, I mean, it's faster than Blumenfeld or Joe managed in Germany on a really flat assisted course. But yeah, I mean, good work. Those times, though, mate. I mean, the men's race was a little bit closer, but Sky Monch had time to do an FBT test while she waited for second place to finish.
I know.
So yeah,
absolutely
mate, Sky,
dominant.
I want to send. We had exchanged messages in the week saying congratulations, but I want to say well done publicly to Sky because that's a hell of a result and good work. North American champion.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, to do it in that style, incredible. What's interesting though, with such fast bike time, run times, the actual finish times aren't that fast.
No.
So it must be a pretty tough bike course.
I was thinking that.
I don't know enough about this race.
I was thinking that you run a 2:29.29 and finish in 7:56.48. You know, you've put some effort in on that bike, haven't you?
Yeah, I know. So again, I feel bad. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe we know about Hansen is an excellent run. I feel bad now that we're like, oh, it must have been short.
Yeah.
Probably.
I love the way he runs. I love the way he runs, mate. Like he's running away from a lion.
Brad Culp said it. Why does Matt Hansen swim so badly? It's because he's saving his arms for the run. I still think that's one of the best things I've ever seen. There's more Ironman racing over the weekend, mate. And this one was down under in Australia. And we got the best race in the world, apparently. I don't know if that's true. Again, try 24/7. I think, James, are you on the payroll, mate? Because you've populated the doc this week.
It was a struggle this week. I had limited time, so I went to my one play. I went to my happy place.
You played it safe. You knew what was good. Joe Ducker's tried 24/7. Hat-trick hero Max Newman, full of praise for Braden Curry, who pushed him all the way. After claiming the men's and women's titles at Ironman Asia Pacific Championships on Sunday, Max Newman and Sarah Crowley were understandably thrilled following their performances on Australia's East Coast. Crossing the line in 7:52.54, Aussie Newman saw a competition from Kiwi Braden Curry and fellow countryman Sam Appleton to come first and set a best of the day 2:41.13 marathon whilst he was at it. After a close swim, Crowley broke away decisively from rivals Radka Carterfeld and Chloe Lane on the bike before finishing 8:59.41, with her win at Cairns coming just 7 weeks after claiming the National Storage Ironman Australia title in Port Macquarie. Max Newman said, "It was an incredible day. I absolutely loved coming here, and I thank everybody who had the same, who says the same. This is the best race in the world by a long way. The swim was pretty quick. We had a nice little tailwind on the way home. We all stuck together, 4 of us, and then me, Apple, and Curry worked really well together on the bike and put about 10 minutes on the second group. Coming in, I dropped off a bit in the last couple of kilometers to keep my legs fresh, and so I came off the bike pretty fresh and really just stuck to my own plan. sitting at 3:47 pace for a 2:40 marathon, around 2:41 in the end. I was just patient. If Curry wanted to run 2:36 for Ironman, he can take the win, but it's pretty hard to do that in these conditions, so I just stuck to my guns and it worked out. Sarah Crowley said, I'm so thrilled. I love this race. I've tried to come every single year. It was my first Ironman 70.3 win and also my first Ironman win, so it means a lot to me. I've got a few of those boomerangs and I just love the crowd here. The event's amazing. The weather, the course, it's immaculate. It's perfect, said Crowley.
What does she mean? I've got a few of those boomerangs. What does that mean?
I'm assuming that's what the award is. They give you do you know what a boomerang is?
Yeah, I know what boomerang is. Yeah, I just won. So you probably get one as a prize. Here's a boomerang.
I think that's what they're saying.
Yeah,
okay,
I guess. Cool. Well, yeah, good to see Sarah Crowley taking this win, mate. I mean, Max Newman's a great athlete, and like you said, he put Braden Curry in a position where he had to run a very fast marathon if he wanted to win it, and he didn't manage to do it, so he took the win. Sarah Crowley back in the game. It's good to see.
Yeah, again, I think you consider what Braden did in St. George, and they come away and do this as well. It's he's obviously having quite a good year. Sarah Crowley, she seems to be pretty unbeatable in Australia at the moment. Cairns, mate. It's a regional championship, and
have you raced it?
I don't know, I've done the 70.3 years and years and years ago.
Yeah, well, we know you. I know you haven't done
ribs,
the
actually.
Ironman, but 70.3.
Yeah, I've done this. It was the race I meant to do last year, but my PTSD from my bike crash has gone. Remember that was the one where I had the mini freak out trying to ride my TT bike.
Is it the best race in the world?
No, mate, absolutely not. There's not even close. Definitely not.
Talking TT bikes, you'll be pleased to know my TT bike's getting an outing this Sunday. First time it's been out in the world. Mate, I'm doing a triathlon in the Alps, a very small one. I'm just doing the swim and the bike, and then I've got a ringer for the run.
Good plan. Now this next one you put in the doc, mate. So I might actually let you take.
I put this in there just to irritate myself because I knew that you'd enjoy it. Sean Conway, who is a ultra endurance athlete, is attempting to break the record for the most number of full iron disc triathlons competed on consecutive days. This is taken from 220 Triathlon magazine. Ultra endurance athlete Sean Conway has revealed he's attempting to break the world record for the most number of iron distance triathlons completed on consecutive days. To successfully achieve the record and beat the one set by James Lawrence, aka the Iron Cowboy.
Your friend.
Yeah, my mate, yeah. He'll need to complete a minimum of 102 iron distance triathlons in 102 days. Speaking in a video posted to his Instagram page at the start of the attempt, Sean said, I'm taking on the legend James Lawrence, the Iron Cowboy's record of 101 consecutive full distance triathlons. I'm going to go for 102, I think, maybe more, probably now, because James set a very high bar. I'm only going to go for 102 because I think that's probably enough. The challenge will see Sean swim 3.8 kilometers, ride 180, and run 42.2 every day. I'm hoping to do it in about 14 to 15 hours, Sean continued, just to give myself enough recovery time on the end and not too fast to kill myself. He started his last challenge on the 12th of June, the same day he announced it. This huge undertaking will take Sean all summer and is made even more impressive by the fact that until starting this challenge, he'd never actually completed a traditional full-distance triathlon.
It's going to take him all summer. It's like, it's 102 days, mate.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, I mean, fair play. I've met and had a good long chat with Sean in the past. I was at.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was at Wilderness Festival in 2017, and he was giving a talk. And so we had a bit of he was actually giving a talk in the same tent that
you were?
No, that I was hanging around in, yeah. And
lurking,
yeah, he's a nice.
That's what we call that, lurking.
He's a nice bloke. He's a friendly bloke, and he's done some cool things. He did the whole round Britain swim thing. So we swam around the entirety of the island.
I remember that. Yep.
Yep. And his tongue started to rot out because of all the salt water. Now, all right, good on you, mate. You've got the time and the resources to go and do this. So go and get it done, and we'll all give you a pat on the back when you've done it.
I love it. It's like at least 102 triathlons in 102 days. It's like, I'm going to squeeze a second one in tomorrow, so I'm going to do 2 in one day. Yeah. But I would love to have been a fly on the wall in the James Lawrence house when he saw this for the first time, and he's like, I'm going to have to do this again, aren't I? I'm going to have to go out there and do 103. And I love the thought that we just have these two guys, and it's almost like the world's shittest auction, where everyone's like, well, I'm going to do 103. I'm going to do 104. Fuck it, I'm going to go 200. Fuck it, I'm going to go 500.
There's no information here as to whether he's doing it on a set course every day or whether he's moving around the country. But if I was going to do it, which I never, ever fucking will, I would have a set course and I'd have my sleeping location and I would just be doing it over and over again. But how boring must that be? I mean, good on you, mate. Have at it.
People love it, mate. People love it, though. I don't understand why.
No.
It's not for me.
It's not for me either.
Yeah, some people seem to love it.
It's not for me either. I want to, if I'm going to race,
I just love the thought of
it.
oh, fucking hell, I got to go. I liked being the person with the most Ironmans. I've got to do this again, don't I?
Do you remember when the Iron Cowboy was in the middle of it last time and he started having a dummy split because no one was giving him any money?
That was the 50-50-50, wasn't it? That
was it? I can't remember.
Race.
But like, it's just that
races,
nobody really
days.
cared, and everybody was just like, "Oh yeah, he's still doing it," and he's like, "Nobody's looking at me anymore." It's like, "Oh mate." Oh,
all you got to do is 104 of them now, man.
Yeah.
People will be paying attention again. One last race that happened over the weekend, and it's not so much about the result as much as the fact that we saw Sarah True make her return. So 70.3 Eagleman happened over the weekend. I got this quick summary from Romy Louise von Schoenveld at Triathlon today. And he said, Canada's Cody Beals and America's Sarah True pulled off a strong run at yesterday's Ironman, which saw them race to first place and claim the gold. During the swim, Beals missed the group with the fastest men, but given his deficit of only 16 seconds, was right in the mix. It was Potts who was first out of the water with a swim time of 23:23. On the bike, Beals, Potts, and Metzler found each other. The three were leading by a minute 15 once they racked their bikes in T2. On the run, Metzler placed an attack, but Beals soon leveled up. Halfway through the run, Beals had taken over and led with just a few seconds. At the finish, the gap had widened to over a minute. Beals claimed the win. Metzler took second, and Potts finished third. And then with a 40-second gap to the first swim, Rachel Zielensass from the USA, True had some work to do after the swim. Although she managed to close that gap down just 10 seconds, she couldn't ride to the first place because that's where Sonia Catano was. On the run, True moved straight to the front, running 1:19.57. She was first across the line, outrunning Canada's Tamara Jewett, who was a minute 13 back, and America's Sophie Watts, a minute 42 back, who had also moved up during the final discipline. Now, Sarah True is an athlete that she's obviously gone away to have a child, and she's now back to racing. And she's an athlete that I am so excited to start racing long course again, because I feel like if she hadn't have had that year in, was it 2019, where she had those 3 brutal DNFs trying to qualify for Kona and then got to Kona absolutely cooked, she would have been an absolute contender there. And the fact that she's back is like, this is exciting for me because she's an athlete I want to see racing Kona at 100% fitness. So good to see she's back.
Yeah, I agree with you. Really great to see her back. And, like I echo your thoughts that it'd be really exciting to see her in Kona. I think, like you say, she has the ability and the skill set to really make a difference there and put a stamp on that race. And well done to Cody Beals. I saw Sean Green's response to your Sarah True is back. What did he say?
Cody Beals as well.
Cody Beals as well.
At least you're consistent, mate. It's like, thanks, Sean. Well done, mate. We get it. Anyone Canadian, you're all over. Fucking hell, the Canadians are the most goddamn patriotic, goddamn triathlon fans I've ever come across. It's like, you don't hear anyway. Yeah, Sean, I get it, mate. Bloody hell. Jimbo, what's next?
Shall we stick an interview with Alex Dowsett in?
We should do it. I enjoy. I'm sure that I've obviously given you all the the points so you know what to talk to him about, so you don't sound too stupid. But I'm sure you'll do us proud, mate. We'll be back afterwards.
Well, as I just said, I'm joined by Alex Dowsett, who's a British professional road cyclist. He currently rides for Israel Premier Tech. He's a time trial specialist. In 2015, he broke Track World Cycling Hour record by 446 meters with a distance of 52.937 kilometers. But more impressively, and more importantly, he was recently part of the pacing team used by Joe Skipper to go sub 7 hours at the Iron Distance in Germany at the sub 7, sub 8 event. Alex, how are you, mate? I see you're back home. How are you going post event?
Still buzzing off the event, but unfortunately riddled with a bit of COVID. So up and down. But I enjoyed the aftermath of the sub 7, sub 8 very much. It was all the hype around it and just being a part of it. Really, it was a lot of fun.
Have you found? Because obviously you've come into the triathlon audience's world. Have you found your audience is interested in the sub 7, sub 8? Sort of the road cycling people. Are they looking in and going, "What's he up to?"
Yeah, massively. I mean, I think there's two reasons at play there. The team time trial has kind of died a death in the professional cycling ranks. I don't know why.
It's such a shame. I love it.
It is. It really
Yeah.
is, because it's such a spectacle, and I don't think there's anyone that doesn't enjoy it. Both, no, I know there's riders that don't enjoy it, but like, as a spectator sport, and to be able to sort of be part of a team event like that, there's nothing else quite like it within cycling. And what I noticed about the sub 7, sub 8, which I guess was one of the real wins for the event, was a lot of people who weren't normally interested in triathlon tuned in. They tuned into the live event. I put out 2 YouTube videos from the event as well, and that garnered a huge amount of hype. And suddenly you've got cycling purists that are having their eyes open to triathlon, so the swim, the run, and then like everything in between. And that was, for them, that was because of the triathlon, because of the team time trial aspect to it, and obviously the names that were involved in the bike legs of the sub 7, sub 8, and just the spectacle of it, just an absolute like a speed, the pinnacle of trying to go fast. Like there was, there's no corners, no climbs. There's just an absolute tailor-made, like how fast can you go course. And I think people really enjoyed that aspect to it.
I think they did. I mean, seeing bike units work like that on a course like that, it was something to behold. I mean, even if you're for a diehard team time trial fan like me, it was brilliant. But even if you're not a cycling fan or a triathlon fan, when you tune in and watch it and you see what the guys were doing and the women were doing, you think, well, this is worth watching.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the strategies at play. I think the rate of races panned out as well, made it super exciting to watch. Obviously, with the men's, Christian taking an early lead, and then Joe's team pulling that all back in the bike and putting a little bit of a buffer in, and then having Christian have to run down Joe in the marathon. And then obviously the women's was possibly even more exciting with both Nicola and Kat coming out the water together. Then I think in the bike leg, Kat's team were expected to put time into Nicola's team, but it wasn't as much as everyone was thinking. And then just that fight at the end in the marathon was any sports fan would have been excited to watch. A 7 or 8 hour event is a long time to watch sport, but it seemed to have people's attention for the whole thing. I know through all the comments and interaction engagement I got, was people were like saying they were glued to the screen for the entirety of the event. And that's when you've got, in the men's, when you've got an underdog like Joe pulled in at the last minute, hasn't prepped for it and everything, versus a guy who's seemingly unstoppable right now, and to actually have a race on your hands is, with just 2 people is really wonderful, I think.
Yeah, I think it was a surprise to a lot of people. It wasn't a surprise to some of us that Joe did as well as he did, but it was a surprise to a lot of people. So you boys, you put out a 3:16:42 over the 180 kilometers of the bike leg, which is an average of 55.2 kilometers an hour. That is mental fast. What was it like in there, in that pace line? Because I know we spoke to you before the race and you were saying the third hour is going to be the sort of the unknown. You're stepping into the unknown because it's not a distance that you see in pro cycling anymore on a time trial. What was it like throughout? And were there moments where you were questioning, like, oh Christ, this is actually testing me like more than I think I can do?
It was wild, but it was also clinical. Like Dan Bigham took over we had sort of Jacob Tipper was general manager overseeing the whole thing. Dan was involved with the pacing strategies and the best way of extracting everything out of us. I'd like to think I was a little bit involved in the reality check within the team, saying like, look, this is outside of, and this was the major thing for us. Obviously, I think the only person in that team that had done 180k on a TT bike was Joe. And the only person who'd ever done 180k at pace was Joe. So for all 8 of us pacers, it was something that was going to be like quite a long way out of our comfort zone, something that was very new. So but you can calculate everything down to the like nth degree, and we knew 55k was like, for an hour it would have been like easy. For 3 hours 20, I think that was like it's possible if we can back it up. And we thought 50.
Were there any voices in the team trying to go higher than that?
No, because the
Okay.
good thing is, I mean, the first thing when we arrived, what we had to quickly ascertain is what was the limiting factor to speed. Was it us or was it Joe? Like, if we were putting Joe in an absolute hurt locker, then it was going to be a fruitless exercise, because he at the end of the day he has to run a marathon afterwards. Whereas, we had whereas if we were the limiting factor to speed and it was comfortable for Joe, then, which is what it was, then that was their dream scenario. And we worked out that was quickly what happened. So then we look at, like, realistically the power we can do on the front, and then you sort of correlate that with your CDA, and it's like, okay, what speed does that equate to? And like for me, for example, with my CDA, it was going to look at like 475 watts on the front to maintain 55k an hour, which that's a lot. That's a lot to then repeat.
Yeah. How long increments are you doing that for?
3 minutes. There's 3 minute pulls, which is about half a lap of the track.
And then how long is your recovery as you sink back down through the group?
Quite a while. I mean, that's where when you've got 7 guys in the line, one guy's a pacer, so the 20 minutes of I'd say probably like 15 minutes of good recovery, like 200 to 250 watts, and then as you move into third place and second place, your power goes up. So then that becomes like sort of high 200s. Then in second place, I was low 300s, and then you're doing your turn on the front again. So James, I've just had a low battery notification on my
no worries.
laptop,
Plug
so
in.
I'll just plug it in quickly.
All right.
All good.
Good work, mate. Yeah. You don't have long nowadays when it says low battery, do you?
No.
So it's basically 3 hours, 16 minutes of quite hard, very hard intervals that I couldn't probably even push out for one 3 minute session of 400 plus watts. Like, what does that feel like when you start? Does it feel to you, because you're doing it for that amount of time? Does the start feel easy? You feel like you're not pushing hard enough, and then it just gets harder and harder throughout? And towards the end, were you screaming, or was it a measured effort throughout?
I was pretty measured. Although you would, like, you'd kind of be, every so often I'd be in and I'd just have a look at the shadows on the road to see how many places I've got until I'm on the front again. And you're kind of bracing yourself. You're like, well, and you're working out as well with the half laps if you've got a headwind or a tailwind, because that makes a big difference to how. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't change the power, but how it feels. It feels a lot easier in the tailwind than it does the headwind. And then you kind of brace yourself for it. And there's often an element of self-doubt comes in, because I was like, is this the turn where I'm going to really start struggling and not be able to do it? Maybe I'm going to have to swing off early. And so you're all in kind of a mind of letting the team down. So there's a little bit of nerves coming into each turn, and then you get going. And I think after about 10-20 seconds, much like I find any interval, after 10-20 seconds, your perceived pain kind of shoots up. You're like, oof. And I think the good thing and the bad thing with that oval is, obviously the good thing is the speed, but the bad thing is how far away the other banking seems, because it's a very short banking and it's a very long straight. So you're looking, you can even, it's like that, like you see in car racing, where there's that haze where the road's gone like almost see-through. Like, well, that's a long way away. So you've settled in, And it mixed between trying to look up the road, but not trying to look where you're going because of aerodynamics. Looking at your numbers, but also trying to not panic if you're on the headwind leg and the speed's just trickling down. If you're on the tailwind leg, trying to actually get the speed up, but making sure it's in a way that isn't going to buckle the team. You don't want to just really accelerate up to pace. You want it to be a gradual acceleration, so everyone is still resting. And then, but I'd say after about a minute, you settle in, and then the next 2 minutes is fine. Like the next 2 minutes is pretty cruisy, and you're like, well, not cruisy, you're still like going hard, but you've settled in, and you know you can get to the banking, and then there's little. I found there would often be little markers and then start just not looking at anything, kind of just looking at my wrists really, and keeping an eye on where I am in the lane. Because the beauty is you got a radio in, so you know you can see so far ahead that you know if you're catching another team or if there's an obstacle. And then also we've got with the radio, Jacob can tell us if there is something we need to watch out for anyway. So you can kind of just settle in and there'd be a little marker. So on the tailwind leg, I'd know for some reason my head unit would tell me there's a sharp corner coming up. So for 27 times, it told me there was a sharp corner coming up. But I'd know that was then, I had about 45 seconds left until we got into the banking. So, and then on the headwind leg, it would be where you entered like a covered tree section. Then you know you're just at the banking. So it was, it's quite metronomic, I'd say.
Yeah, so when you're trying to ride those numbers based on your CDA and how long you're going to be in front to keep a certain power, are you having to look at your head unit to make sure you're hitting those numbers, or do you get a feel for what those numbers feel like towards this sort of experience?
You get a feel in the end. I think the head, like having the power in front of you, it's a useful tool, but I find in TTs and certainly in the sub 7, sub 8, it's actually only really useful for the first 5 minutes, and there's more to modulate, to bring down, to not get carried away and cook yourself, because after that you've got what you've got, and that was kind of the same for this. Once I had a feel for what my turn was going to involve, how hard I needed to push, and it did then come down to feeling was how hard I needed to push. Then I could have very much done it without the head unit. I think the head unit, having the power in front of you, was useful for those, like the first turn on the road section coming from T1 to the circuit, and then for the first like 1 or 2 turns on the actual lap, it was useful. But after that, I'd say it was more based on feel and actually possibly looking at speed more than anything else. Because whilst we wanted to go as fast as we could, what we found in training was if we were going above 60 kilometers an hour, so like approaching 40 mile an hour, that's when it was starting to be a bit too taxing for Joe, considering the marathon he had to run. So it was keeping a lid on that, and then on the headwind leg, trying not to see lower than kind of 52, 53 kilometers an hour as well, because into a headwind you get more recovery on the wheels than you would do in a tailwind. So if you had a headwind leg, you could afford to push a bit harder with the power, and in the tailwind legs where you had to, it was never really less, but you did have to keep a lid on getting a bit carried away and trying to hit 62, 63k an hour.
Did everybody manage to complete their 3 minutes throughout the whole thing? Or were there people that had to have a pull off a bit early and have a bit of an extra rest?
In the most part, a few guys. I think it was always the plan that John, Dan, and I, John Archibald, Dan Bigham, and myself would complete the full distance. We had the 2 Tanfields joined us from T1 to the circuit, and then Zeb, Sai, and Michael would join us on the lap. So, and then it was a case of, we had a rough plan for being sweeper. So there was, I guess, 3 elements of rest. One was the rest whilst you were doing your turns. One was a rest by being a sweeper for Joe, and sweepers where you are man 8 you've only got Joe behind you, and because every time there's a change, Joe would have to leave a gap, and then so he'd have to decelerate and then accelerate, and that those surges were hurting Joe more than anything else. So we said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to put someone in front of Joe, so that rider is going to soak up the surges, and that's easier than being in the line and doing your turns. And then we said, if you really need a rest, then you take a lap out. And we very much made it. We say take a lap out before you need to, because if you're on your hands and knees, a 6 minute, or basically a 4 minute recovery by the time you slow down and then speed up again isn't much. So so we said, take it before you need it, and and I think everyone. And it's about taking your egos out of the equation, really, and making sure you could do it. So I was on a very good day, and we had a little order of people to be sweeper. And when it became my turn, I went down the radio. I said, "Look, I'm pretty good. I don't think I'm in any trouble, and I don't think I'm in need of being a sweeper here. So if someone else needs to take it, they can." And we kept it very fluid in that respect. So it worked out perfect.
Were there any moments, because we saw a clip of Christian's team have a little, almost a clash of wheels at one point? Did you guys have any moments like that? Any moments where something felt like it almost went wrong?
No. I think the only adjustment we made in the last 45 minutes is on the headwind leg. So the back straight, we said, I came down the radio. I said to Jacob, I said, if people need to pull a half turn here, like this is where to do it, because it's the headwind. It's a lot tougher than the tailwind leg. And yeah, I'd say in the last half hour, 45 minutes, that's when a couple of cracks started appearing, which basically means we got it perfect in terms of the pacing. If cracks don't appear, you haven't gone hard enough. If cracks appear halfway through, you've overcooked it. And it wasn't until the last sort of 30 minutes that cracks started to appear. And all that meant was 1.5-minute turns instead of 3-minute turns, which if you put that in a normal team time trial, that's still long turns to be doing at a huge amount of power. So
without question.
I think that it was testament to. Also, I think with the touches of wheels, when stuff like that happens, when there's changes in speed, and obviously there's always changes of speed because of the headwind, tailwind, but I guess what I mean by that is more momentum. When there's changes in momentum, if you're freewheeling in the wheels, whoever's on the front is slowing things down. And conversely, if you are having to put out like 500 watts in the wheels, the person on the front's kicking through and going far too hard. And it just never felt that. And also that's, if you start having that fluctuations, that's when people touch wheels. That's when you just hemorrhage time as well. And you buckle riders. That's what really hurts riders, when they're having to slow down and then sprint back up to speed again. So, and I think with what we knew about how much power we needed to do, the speed we needed to do, and everything, no one got carried away, and also no one slowed things down either. And that was, I think that's down to a really good plan, a great execution of the plan, and a lack of egos in the team. No one there wanted to go and show how strong they were, or no one was fearful enough of not pulling as long as they should have done, or as long as they felt they needed to, because that's always what hurts a team time trial, is when one of those two things happen.
Did you gel as a unit when you got together with the guys? You were all on the same page. What was it like? Was it like riding in a team time trial like that for that long with a group of people who really do get the art of the team time trial and the importance of aerodynamics? You're all on the same page. You're not riding your world tour team where some people might be climbers, some people might be sprinters. You're doing a team time trial, but it's not a sort of the same playing field. What was that like?
Oh, it was great. Everyone got on like a house on fire. I think there's a couple of new faces for me. Everyone else knew each other more or less. But yeah, we had a common ground in wanting to go as fast as possible, and all having a love for the time trial and the team time trial, and just being very excited to be a part of the event. And yeah, having actually the other team being like Christian for starters, and us being like the underdogs in the end. And also the other team being made up of another group of British time trialists. It was quite a lot of rivalry, so we really did have to band together to. Yeah, there was all the talking before. Like, we said we were going to go really fast. They said they were going to go like really slow, and I think they said we were going to decimate Joe, and kind of laughed at our lofty aspirations of speed. And obviously they went far faster than they'd predicted, and we went a little bit faster than we predicted. But it was, and then afterwards, I think what I really liked about the whole thing was afterwards there was so much. It was very healthy competition, but then everyone had a beer afterwards, and that was that for me was one of the sort of massive takeaways from the event, was just the and how invested everyone was in both the sub 7 and the sub 8. It was just great. I gelled with my team there, but also gelled with like everyone, and it was it was like chats, being able to just talk openly with like Christian, who's he's Christian Blumenfeld at the moment. He's untouchable in the triathlon world and Olympic champion. And Alistair Brownlee's there, like chipping in, trying to help Joe in the run. And we roped in Frank. We kept giving Frank jobs on it. Frank was Joe's marathon pacer, who he got fully stuck in. Like, we'd have team meetings about like pacing strategies for the bike, and he's just like, he's sort of throwing ideas in the mix. And I think that was nice, because obviously we then didn't, none of us created an intimidating environment. Like, if Frank, who has no knowledge of cycling, can feel like he's a very good marathon runner, but if he can sit there and feel comfortable enough to throw an idea in the mix to a team of like world-class cyclists trying to do their thing, it's I would, if I was in his running shoes, I wouldn't dream of I'd feel
like, Frank, you
nervous.
need to stick at this pace, Frank, mate. I'd be sticking at that pace.
I'd be very nervous about saying to Frank, well, why don't you run like this? But I think it was just real cool that we could create that environment that like Frank could throw ideas in the mix for the bike leg. And then we kept loading Frank up with jobs. It was like, I think before the run, Joe was like, oh, is anyone helping me from the beach to the transition area? We're like, Frank. And then it's like, oh, is anyone taking my rucksack from the T1 to the finish? We're like, Frank.
So, sounds to me like I was Frank for Kat's team, to be honest. I was loaded with bags for that first bit. So let's talk about Joe then. There were doubts he had eight days notice. He comes in, he coaches himself. He's not, I represent Joe. I know how good an athlete he is. He's a different type of character, a different type of personality in the sport to Christian Blumenfeld. He doesn't have that kind of entourage thing going on. He just rocks up and does his thing. There were doubts from outside looking in as to how well he was going to do. Yeah. Were the doubts from the inside when he was coming in? How did he quell? Did he quell those? How did he quell those? How quickly did you go like, oh, actually, I'm backing this guy. I'm going to be on his team.
Oh, Joe was fun. I kind of know Joe from quite a long way back. He rode for Richardson's Trek. I think it was under a different name before. He was a cyclist before he then went to Tri, and he was unique then. So I kind of came in, knowing Joe, and we'd spoken a little bit before just about altitude and recovering from COVID and stuff. So, but we all knew that Joe was an animal on the bike, just because of that 12 12-hour TT he did last year or the year before. He did 300 watts for 12 hours, which for all of us was like unfathomable. And yeah, I think my fondest memory of the event with Joe is when we were sat in the athletes briefing, and this was 2 days before, and I looked at Christian sat there, and he's like sat, and I seemed to be about like 10 like beautifully immaculate Scandinavian men with him. Like, you know, his entourage, like his coach, a manager, another manager, a manager for the managers, like just like everyone. And then I noticed I was sat next to Joe, just me. I sort of went to Joe. I was like, "Is your coach coming?" And he leant across. He was just like, "Coach myself, mate." I kind of laughed. I was like, "That's cool. Like, that's really cool. I respect that." And yeah, he just. We for the bike. Yeah, once we'd done a couple of training sessions, and we were obviously quite nervous about how Joe would be on the bike. Would it be, like I said before, the limiting factor? Would it be too hard for Joe? And afterwards, Joe was like, "No, it's fine." We're like, "Cool." Like then we're off. Like no problem at all. And I think that was nice. Joe was fully invested in it, and he, I think for us, he was just like, go as fast as you can because I need a big gap to Christian. And then it was like red rule to a red rag to a bull for us. We're like, cool, like it's game on. And yeah, it was just nice, super appreciative of everything like we did for him, and like the buy-in from everyone. So I think that was, it was a lot of fun.
How did he do? How did he do in the wheels wonderful. On the bike? So it was a good performance from the triathlete / ex-cyclist. He held his own.
I mean, yeah, in my mind was like every so often I went down the radio, I was like, "How is Joe?" And no one said anything. So I was like, "Well, he's either not there,
he's not there anymore,
or he's fine." And yeah, it was no news was good news. So. And I think Joe ran a PB marathon off the bike, so it was, and we, after the bike, we all had to have a bit of a sit down, and then we had quite a strong reality check in that whilst we were having a sit down and having a drink and recovering, and Joe was off like trying to hold off the Olympic champion. So
he certainly did well, and Weed Killer Man is now found fame as well because he's been interviewed. He's been interviewed by a publication, and he's got his own article out there. So that's we're creating new characters everywhere, mate. What was it like standing by the sidelines, watching him do that, supporting him, cheering them on, watching all of them do it? Really?
It was great. It was. I think for me, it really broadened my horizons to sport and competition. I've lived a very insular sporting career, being just like in the privileged position to be in the world tour, but that's all I've known. And I've done a couple of events now which have opened my eyes to there being so much more outside of the world tour. And and this event was probably the pinnacle of that, and that was watching just that team, that real team aspect in there was really great, and there was no like everyone that was there for their like either Nicola, Kat, Christian or Joe. There's no individual prize. No. I mean, I know like the four of those were the four that crossed the line and broke the sub-7, sub-8, but and I thought that was I really enjoyed that aspect to it. And watching the run, it was wonderful because you watch the women's race unfolding, you're cheering hard for both of them, and then kind of like cheering for Christian, but there's a sense of humour there. So I think
lots of barking going on.
Initially, when Christian ran by, I was like, "Go on, Joe, like go!" And then Christian came by, and I was like, "I can't be an asshole here and like, say nothing. I clapped. I was like, "Yeah, you're looking all right, Christian. Like, just all right though." He laughed. He laughed, and then 2 laps later, he came round, and that's when he'd just overtaken Joe, and he barked at me. I was like, "Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
He's got to say
Fair
something."
enough. Yeah. He was owed that one, I think. The amount of barking he put up with for the rest of the day.
Yeah. So no, that aspect was really cool.
Oh, it was like an atmosphere like I've never experienced any race before. Because I mean, triathlons are very individual, but feeling like there was this sort of almost family environment because everyone was pulling together for different causes. It was like a week like no other. It really was. It was truly. I don't know whether it'll ever be repeated, because if it does, it'll be
so.
I hope so too.
I mean,
Would you do it again?
In a heartbeat, like absolutely, at the drop of a hat. And I would encourage some of my teammates to come have a go. And some of my teammates did ask. Not afterwards, even before. I had Paddy Bevan, who's a New Zealand teammate of mine, won the Tour of Turkey this year.
Yeah.
When I told him I was doing it, he was like, and this is about a month before. He was like, "That sounds awesome. Can I do it as well?" I said, "I'll have to ask." And I think we were, unfortunately at the time, we were pretty full. It would mean someone that had been picked would then be unpicked, so it was like far too late in the day. But
because you had 2 riders that didn't ride anyway, didn't you? You had a pool of riders that were bigger than the actual pace team in the end.
Yeah, and it was again from them massive that they like Ollie and Alex, massive that they got stuck in still, did everything they could, even though they weren't riding, did everything they could to help the team on the day and the day before. And like Ollie cleaned everyone's bikes the night before. Just no one asked him to. He just went and did it. And I think it was real admirable of them. And Ollie finished second in National 25 on the weekend as well. So it was clear we had strength and depth in the team.
So not to throw any of your existing teammates under the bus from this event, but if right now you could pick the ultimate team time trialing unit from the current World Tour, how quickly do you think there is a group of people that could go quicker than this out there?
Yes. I mean, if you cherry picked the 10 best, if you removed Joe, Christian, Nicola, and Kat from the occasion, and you cherry picked the 10 best.
Mate, we've turned this into an ultimate team time trial now. We've forgotten the triathlete element.
Yeah, I mean, if you cherry picked like the 10 best team time trialists in the world, for sure, you could go a little bit faster. But I probably wouldn't feature in the team.
How much faster do you think?
1 or 2 kilometers an hour.
Okay, so you're not.
I said to these, because a lot of the guys in my team said, if World Tour teams were to do this event, how would they compare? And I said, honestly, I think there's only 2 teams that could possibly go faster, and it would only be by a little bit.
And you'd have to have like a Ghana in there or someone like that.
Yeah, it'd be Jumbo, Lotto Jumbo, and Ineos. I think would be the only 2 teams that could go faster than we did. And I stand by that, because it's just with the technicalities of a team time trial, I think is understood by very few. And what you don't, collecting the 10 best doesn't mean the fastest time. If you have 10 very good guys that work together like we did, they will be faster than 10 of the best time trialists that don't work together.
Yeah, I mean the lack of understanding about the team time trial was more than evident in the lead up to this event, for the amount of grief that we were getting just for how easy it was going to be. It's going to be armchair ride because they're pacing him, and it's just like, you clearly never ridden in a team time trial. You don't understand the surges involved. You don't understand the intricacies of how difficult it can be. But I think we showed that quite well. So what's next for you then, mate? What's the rest of the year got in it, and what's the future hold for Alex Dowsett?
Just recovery at the moment. Recovery from COVID, just taking each day as it comes, trying to wait until I feel fine again. And then hopefully national championships, which is next week. So I need this recovery to be quick.
Oh, yeah.
And then back end of the season with racing, I think Tour of Wallonia, Tour of Poland. There's Commonwealth Games, but I don't think I'll be competing. And then, Worlds, I wouldn't have thought I would compete there either. The game's moved on. Teams taking younger riders. And then long-term future, I don't know.
Where do you have any specific ambitions in the sport at the moment? Anything that you think, I want to achieve this?
I think for me the last goal was Olympics, and that unfortunately eluded me, and that's fine. Like it's not everyone can win or achieve everything they want, but I think within the sport I've competed in everything. I've won more than most pros would. I have a career that's been satisfactory.
15 World Tour victories?
15 pro wins. 3
pro wins, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, 3 World Tour victories, like 2 of which were in Grand Tours. The Commonwealth Games, gold and silver, an hour record, success and failure. Done more than most, and I'm happy with that. So, yeah, I mean, it's contract year, so I don't know what the future holds for the next couple of years, but it'll either be knock it on the head this year or another 1 or 2 year contract and then knock it on the head. And then I don't know. Like, I think I'd like to do a triathlon after sub 7. I'd like to do. I'm not gonna sit here and say do it for
fun, or go down the Cam Worth Adam Hansen road of saying I'm going to conquer Kona.
No, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do one. No one will know about it. Like no one. I will do some running and swimming training, but nothing will exist on Strava, and then I will enter a very low key, if that exists, triathlon, and test the water, so to speak. I think I opened my eyes to sport outside of the World Tour as well. Just have some fun on a bike again. And I'm not saying the World Tour isn't fun. It's hard, but it's fun. It's perhaps a bit stiff, and I'd like to just broaden my horizons a bit more into what one can do on a bike competitively.
Well, when you do decide to dip your toe in the tri world and you're looking for a race to go and do, mate, hit me up and I'll give you some pointers as to where you can go, and I'll come and kick your ass as well if you like.
I will do, and we'll tell no one about it. Maybe even enter under a pseudonym.
Well, good to speak to you, mate. Really appreciate it.
Alex Dowsett.
Alex did not Dowsett. That'll do it. All right, mate. Good to speak to you. Thanks very much. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to the down low on the PTO. So, mate, I put in a rankings check in here, didn't I? But you told me we're doing something else. So, do you want me to review the rankings quick, or do you want to move on to something else? Not really. All right, then. So, what was it? What is it we're talking about, Fordo?
So there's been we know that last week Jan Frodeno announced that he was racing Challenge Roth, and one of the things that I liked was there's been a bit of banter between Jan Frodeno and Sam Long, and the PTO actually highlighted it. So there was a photo of Frodo again. A lot of people were like, did you take that? Because it's clearly I was like, no, but I might have been lurking in the background of Frodo's photo. And he said, Sam Long left a voice message saying something about being excited to see him at Challenge Roth. Couldn't catch the rest. It sounded like he was struggling underwater. And then Sam's responded to that and said, sounds like the GOAT, Jan Frodeno, might need some hearing aids. And I thought that was pretty good because I like to see that the PTO is starting to highlight these rivalries and these characters of our sport, because in the past, this is the stuff that we never would have seen. And it shows to me that I think the PTO is actually sort of embracing rivalries isn't the right word, or the characters of our sport a bit better. And I just thought that was worth having a bit of a chat around because it's something I really enjoy. I also saw that Sam put up a post on his Instagram saying that it's good to see that the Jan Frodeno's come back out of retirement to race him at Challenge Roth. Like, I like these little snide comments at each other because I think it does make the sport good. And I saw some people were sort of going to Sam being like, mate, you don't get to take swings until you've done better. And he's like, fucking why not? Like, do you want me just to be like, oh, sorry, Jan, you're the best? No, but I think he said what he's trying to do is grow the sport a little bit. And I think he's doing a good job at that because he is a character in the sport. And I like that the PTO is sort of trying to support that as well.
I agree. And I'm going to take credit for this, mate. I did this.
You did. You got in his head. You are the
Yoda
to the Sam Long, Luke Skywalker.
Me and Joe Skipper over a beer at the Collins Cup last year said, mate, you gotta stop being so deferrally. That's not a word. But to Frodeno, like don't stop banging on about how good he is and go and give him some shit. And he has done, and it's great to see it because I think, like you, man, we've got to have these little stories, these little rivalries. I mean, I know that some of them are a little contrived and a little bit more humorous than they are real, but I think you will start to see some true beef and needling bubble to the surface at some point between some athletes, and the more that the landscape to emphasize that is in place, the more that the rivalries will start to surface. And we all know, don't we, that Sam's going to get a good kick in at Roth by Frodo. But I mean, neither of those two matter because Ditlev will be so far ahead; they'll be fighting for second and third.
And there's Patrick Lang as well, who I reckon is going to have fire. Yeah. Now, that was one of the things I did notice it straight away. Straight after the post, the PTO put up a poll: is Sam going to get his? Is he basically going to get revenge or not revenge, or is he going to beat Frodo? And it was like 80% no, 20% yes. I was like, that's pretty good actually. 20% of people. I was like, because I was like, no, I don't think so. I think Sam's fantastic, but Frodo's Frodo. It's funny that I've literally just done exactly what you said Sam should stop doing. Oh, Frodo, you're the best. No one can beat you. Yeah,
but you're not racing him.
It's true, mate. Just in my mind, I am. I just visualize myself racing him and being like, sorry, Jan, I did all this work, but I will let you finish before me, mate, because I'm that kind. Because I believe in your legacy. Shit, mate. You know what, James? We're wrapping this week up. So the last thing we always talk about is if you enjoy this podcast, if you enjoyed the interview that James did with Alex Dowsett, if you enjoyed the content we did at Sub, if you want to see what we did at Sub, you can head to mxendurance.com/podcast where you can join up for one of our podcast memberships for as little as $3.40 a month if you sign up for our annual plan. Or you also get a whole suite of benefits, including access to our Facebook group, partner discounts, access to our merchandise store, all good stuff. But we've also now got the MX Endurance Discord, which is publicly open. We've had a whole bunch of new people join it. So if you want to come in and discuss the podcast, share your thoughts, all that stuff, all you need to do is send us an email at podcast@mxendurance.com, send us a message on Instagram, and we've also put up a post this week on our Facebook page with the link. So feel free to jump in. We can discuss the podcast. We can discuss racing and all those sort of things. It's a good place to do it. But yeah, mxendurance.com/podcast. James Bell, where do they go if they want to find out other things?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. Really helps the show out. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow. And if you've got any suggestions, comments, or queries, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
Bale, you didn't get kicked off at the last second then like you did last week, and luckily it didn't actually kick you off. But, mate, a pleasure. Enjoy your race this weekend. Talk to you next week.
Take care, mate. Bye.